Hey, welcome back to Connections Break Barriers. This is a limited conversation series brought to you by the MBA programs at Kennesaw State University. This conversation with T.Dallas Smith was absolutely amazing. He has been in commercial real estate for a very long time, but you will also hear that he is from Atlanta and has built meaningful relationships throughout his career. I really enjoyed this discussion and hope that you do too. See you soon. So I appreciate you having this conversation.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm wonderful, man. I'm a big fan of yours and TK's, and so any chance I can do to help, I'm here.
I really appreciate it. This conversation series for me is about trying to explore relationships. To do that, though, we've got to get a little background, right? So I want to start with, where is home? Where are you from?
I am Atlanta born, Atlanta bred. When I die, I'll be Atlanta dead. We're on the west side now. I grew up not more than, call it 3 miles from here.
What did you want to be when you were growing up in Atlanta?
You know, it's funny. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, but didn't know that's what that was. Mm-hmm. I was 8 years old when my mother came and said, everybody called me Ty when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. She said, Ty, you should go ask the Flanagans if you can cut their grass. And I'm 8. I only asked one question. I said, Mom, how much should I charge? She said, $5. Ran over, asked him, knocked on the door like the house was on fire. And Ty, what's going on? I said, can I cut your grass? And they said, yeah, how much you charge? I said, $5. Start cutting grass. I cut grass from 8 till I was 21 years old. I named the company Stop and Stare Lawn Care. My slogan, this is an 8-year-old, the slogan was, I'll cut your grass so nice, people will stop and stare. And I did that until I was 21 years old, man. But I didn't know it was entrepreneurship. I didn't know that's what it was. I just like the freedom of having money, kind of working on my own time. I also like getting clients. So at one point, I had every person on the street. There was another guy up the street who was bigger than me. It was a teenager. I was so small I couldn't crank the mower. But my cousin was taller, he could, so I brought my cousin in as my first JV partner.
Well, I was going to ask you about the team. Like, how did
that was the team.
That was the team.
That was me and him. He was taller, and then I finally caught up with him, and we continued to do cut grass. But he became a high school famous football player and all that kind of stuff. So he can have the weekends to cut grass like I did.
To look at that period of your life and how you were acquiring clients. So you mentioned folks in the neighborhood, right? But there could have been another kid in the neighborhood that would have had a similar interest.
Yeah.
What did you learn about just sales, building relationships at that time period of your life to scale even that company?
I knew how to leverage my mom and my dad. My mom and my dad had great relationships in the marketplace. So I'm 62, so I grew up in the era where the first question people ask you, who's your mom and dad? You know, that's they led with that, you know. And if your mom and dad was cool people, then automatically you got grace. And I led with my dad. His name was Willie Glenn Smith. A lot of friends call him Glenn. Some people call him Smitty. Depending on the circle, he drove a taxi for Simpson Cab Company. They called him Smitty there. But he worked at Lockheed. They called him Glenn. And then my mother kept kids in the neighborhood. Everybody called her Auntie. And so I would tell everybody, I would lead with, hey, I'm Auntie, I'm Glenn's son. Oh, yeah. And then I already had a shoe in. And so I learned how to leverage others, man. Like when I worked at Herman Russell, first name I would give people was Herman Russell's name before my name. HJ told me to give you a call. I would lead with that. So I learned how to leverage the asset that I had.
You mentioned Herman Russell, and so there's something I was going to ask you about. For folks that don't know, and I would say everybody should know, so do additional research. If you're watching this conversation, do additional research.
Absolutely.
But talk to us about that particular opportunity. How did you get to work with him?
So I got into the commercial real estate business when I was 19, working with a guy named Tommy Tiff first. Then after Tiff, for 6 years, I went to work for Cushman & Wakefield. I was the first black broker to work for Cushman & Wakefield in Atlanta, in Georgia. They were owned by the Rockefellers at the time. Wow. So the MO for Cushman, if you didn't come from money, you didn't work there. And I didn't come from money. My dad worked at Lockheed, drove a taxi. My mom kept kids at the house. So But Herman Russell was one of those names that was in the marketplace. You couldn't, if you were a black person in Atlanta, you opened a newspaper, Herman Russell was building a building, doing something big, just donating some money. I mean, he was a big deal. And so I grew up watching this, man. So now I'm at Cushman & Wakefield, and I'm doing tenant rep. Before, when I was at TIFF, I was just representing his properties. So I was on the landlord side for my first 6 years in the industry.
Right.
Got in the tenant side when I went to Cushman. My very first cold call was to Herman Russell. So Herman didn't know me from Adam. Had a whole spiel, to give him. His secretary answered the phone. I gave him this call. Hey, I'm T.Dallas Smith, and first black broker at Cushman & Wakefield, is owned by the Rockefellers. I would like to talk to Mr. Russell. He's in the real estate business. I think there's some things that we can do together. I go through this. I don't remember what else I said, but I had this whole spiel. Made a few more calls. It felt like a weight was off my shoulders just by calling Herman. It was like, let me go to the break room, take a little breather. But in my head, I just knew it was going to take a year, 2 years to get a hold of this man, because Herman was worth, $500 million in real estate easily back then. And he's an important person. So in my mind, my history showed me important people are hard to get a hold of. Absolutely. So I didn't expect him to call me back anytime soon. While I'm in the break room, about 15 minutes later, I get a call on the overhead. Dallas, you have a call. So it's Myra, who's the receptionist. I'm thinking it's my wife at the time. Just send it to the break room, and I think my wife's calling me, bring some bread home, something like that. I pick up the phone. Darryl, this Herman Russell. So, and I'm thrown off because
What's happening?
And I just started laughing. I said, Mr. Russell, I apologize. I said, I'm in the break room. I said, I have a whole script at my desk of what I was going to say to you. And he just started laughing. He said, wow. I said, but the short of it is this. I'm the first black broker at Cushman & Wakefield. They're owned by the Rockefellers. I don't know how I'm going to be tied to you, but I feel like if I'm going to be successful in this business, in this town, I should know you. And he just said, well, I tell you what you do. You call Noel Khalil. That's another name. You tell him I told you to call me. He'll take your call. So I called Noel. He took the call, set up a meeting to go meet with Noel Khalil, who, God rest his soul, was a big-time developer. Him, Egbert Perry, those cats all came out of HJ. And this is a true story. I'm coming out of Noel's office. We talked. Coming around the corner, I literally bump into Jerome Russell. Jerome knocks my portfolio out of my hand, so my business card's on the floor. So Jerome said, oh, man, I'm sorry. So Jerome's picking up my business cards off the floor, and he goes, he said, you Dallas Smith? He said, yeah. He said, you with Cushman & Wakefield? I said, yeah. He said, you with Cushman & Wakefield? Yeah. You with Cushman & Wakefield? Yes, I'm with Cushman & Wakefield. He said, man, we got to talk. He said, man, I'm Jerome Russell. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized that was Herman's son. And Jerome said, man, I'm really interested in commercial real estate. Can we get together and break bread? So Jerome and I got together, broke bread. We did just hit it off. Wow. We did that for 3 years, once a month. And we just built a relationship. Wow. And in one of those meetings, Jerome said, man, well, when I become president of the company, I want you to come over to Russell and start a brokerage division. And I thought, like, yeah, okay. And in my head, that ain't going to happen no time soon. Yeah. So, but sure enough, man, I'm leaving something out. At Cushman, there was 40 brokers. And any given week, every Monday, we had a brokerage meeting. And like if you're the broker, okay, well, Ryan, you got the next Monday coming up. So I had a Monday coming up, and at that Monday, you could have somebody come and present, whatever. So I had H.J. Russell come out and come. Ironically, it was 40 brokers, 39 white brokers, and me. And how Herman was a household name to me, nobody knew who Herman was. Wow. Which was crazy to me. Wow. So I got H.J. Russell and Company to come and present their interiors group because when doing work for tenants, looking for our contractors, I wanted them to be on the list, and that really started the relationship with us. That's how it happened.
I have so many questions. I think there are just so many special things that you just hinted on. So one thing I want to double click on.
Yeah.
The audacity to make that phone call.
Yeah.
one, where does that come from? And two, like,
Yeah.
what advice do you have
Yeah.
for folks that have a person that they want to
Yeah.
make a phone call to, but haven't done it? And in this
Yeah.
day and age, it might be a LinkedIn message or
yeah.
whatever.
Make the call, man. What I realized, number one, where it came from, my mom. My mom she gave me the confidence as a little kid. I wrote a book last year called In the Black. The first chapter is called The Nose of a King. Because I was really skinny, always had this nose. I was born with the same size nose as a small child. And so I came home crying one day because my kids been talking bad about me and stuff. And I'm crying. My mom's in the kitchen washing dishes. And I said, oh, they calling me big nose and like I'm skinny. And my mom just stopped washing dishes. She looked at me and she said, son, you have the nose of a king. And she went back to washing dishes. I remember going in the bathroom, looking at my nose like, oh, that's what a nose of a king looks like. But that she embodied and she empowered me to just have confidence and to also research for yourself. Don't ever take anybody's word for what somebody else said about somebody. Do the homework yourself. Find out if that's the case. And so that confidence really came from my mom. It was instilled in us. Philippians 4:13, 3:14. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Was her thing that she would say on a regular basis. You can do all things. So my whole life I heard that. So to stop myself would be me stopping myself. If somebody's gonna stop you, allow that other person to do it, not you. Don't abort your own stuff. So that came from. So I just knew day one I was gonna shoot for the moon, and Herman was the moon. And the beautiful thing about my relationship with Herman, just recently, the 4 Pillar Award just honored him, and the family asked me to MC the event, which was crazy. When Herman died in 2014, I was the only non-family pallbearer for Herman. And so literally what turned out from a cold call to being a pallbearer was 25 years. So we had a 25-year relationship. When I started the brokerage division for Herman, Herman thought I came to be his personal broker. So meanwhile, I'm trying to represent companies, and we represent a lot of companies at the time. We were doing stuff for General Motors, Walmart, Target. Herman didn't care about none of that. If he needed me,
that's what you're here for.
And so I got fired at least 5 times from Herman because I wasn't available for him because I'm in Miami doing something for Bell South and all this kind of stuff. But what I realized, and I was with Herman for 6 years, but the lessons that he instilled in me, Ryan, really hit home kind of when I wasn't there. It really, like T.Dallas Smith and Company is just a replica of what I saw Herman Russell do. He empowered young folks. Egbert Perry was president of H.J. Russell and Company when he was 25 years old. Egbert took them from $10 million a year to $200 million, $300 million a year. So I saw him do this. You know what I'm saying? So it's like sitting, just watching. You don't realize how much stuff, even your employees, people pick up from you. Not even your direct reports. People who just watch you will emulate you. They will emulate good behavior and they will emulate bad behavior.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of what I do, man, I sound like a broken record a lot of times, but you can ask anybody who worked with me, they can give you a multitude of quotes from H.J. And they never met H.J.
Yeah, wow.
But they just, like cut your own grass first before you cut your neighbor's grass.
Cut your own grass.
That's one of my favorites. So every Monday morning at 7:30, he would have officer meeting. It was H.J. and all the VPs. Every Monday, I would leave with a note, and I don't know where that notebook is. I've got to find that notebook.
But it feels like it's in your head and in your heart.
Now it is for sure. But I know I've forgotten a lot of them. But he came in one morning because he was mad at everybody. Nobody had talked to the mayor. Shirley Franklin was mayor at the time. Shirley had been wanting to meet with somebody from the office, but I think I was in Dallas that week. Like Jerome was in D.C. Everybody had been traveling. And he said, everybody, he said, y'all love to travel. Y'all love to travel. He said, but you got to cut your own grass first. Y'all want to cut your neighbor's grass. And your grass this tall. He said, no more travel. All travel coming through me. For that lasts about a week. So he was going to prove it with travel. But that lesson, we're trying to do all this other stuff. Your grass is high. Cut your grass.
Focus on your own.
Yeah,
Wow.
man. Yeah, man.
Hey, we're going to get back to this conversation, but if you're like me, you're always trying to advance your skill set and grow both personally and professionally. One of the most effective ways to do this is through advanced degrees. I'm proud to be working with my friends at Kennesaw State University for this podcast. With 3 MBA programs to choose from, executive, evening, or web, their curriculum incorporates the latest industry trends and skills that will allow you to make an immediate impact in your career. With KSU's MBA programs, you'll benefit from a flexible format that fits your schedule, including part-time options, 100% online courses, and even a unique weekend format for their Executive MBA. Graduate in as little as 19 months while building lasting connections with a cohort of peers and professionals. Plus, you can see ROI fast with tuition starting as low as $20,000. Nationally ranked and featuring dual accreditation by AACSB International, ranking it in the top 2% of business schools worldwide, Kennesaw State University will help you reach your full potential. Ready to start your journey? Learn more today at ksumba.com.
I do want to go back to one other thing.
Yeah.
So you're the only black broker at a firm that has never had
This
that
is
dynamic.
1989 in Atlanta, Georgia.
For folks, the dynamics have changed in a lot of offices, right? But I don't think that the feeling of being a few, right, in a corporate context.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for how to navigate those environments, but from a relationship standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Because I imagine you still were building meaningful relationships with your colleagues. So, what were you doing to make sure that happened?
The first thing I did, I was going to outwork everybody. So I was going to come in earlier than everybody else. I was going to leave later than everybody else. I wanted them to see the work. Second thing is I would always reach out to others and to see who would receive the hand or not. There's always some advocate. Maybe even in the shadows, there's some advocates. And I found those. And I leaned on what I could lean on, but it was tough times at Cushman. The shoe shine guy, and we were in the IBM building back then, which was a new building in Atlanta. The shoe shine guy, James, I'm going to blank on his last name. But James was my psychiatrist and my my advocate and consultant. When I was dealing with the stuff on the 33rd floor, I come down and talk to James. And he was a great listener, and he'd go, man, I hear you, man. He said, go back up there and whoop their ass. But he was a sounding board for me. And so appreciative of him, man, like for real. And it's also a testament to people at any level can be a resource for you. And James Arnold, sorry, I don't know why I went blank on his last name, but James still does shine the shoes down at Peachtree Center. He's the best. He's the best guy, best shoe shine guy in town. Period, hands down. And in fact, all of his family, all the skyscrapers in town, from Buckhead to Midtown, if it wasn't him, it was an uncle, it was a cousin. They were all in his family. I mean, he's got a gift for shining shoes, man. Smart as I don't know what. And the other lesson I learned from him. He said, Dallas, because I asked him one day, I said, dude, why you shine shoes, man? I said, man, you smart. He said, he looked at me like I was dumb. He said, Dallas, access. He said, you know how many CEOs' shoes I shine? He said, 26. I can pick up the phone and call any of them right now. From, like Georgia Pacific, AT&T, like big companies. In fact, Mensa, Dr. Mensa, he created Cat 5 wiring. Was one of the guys that James used to shine the shoes. Some kind of way, Bill Gates, not Bill Gates, the guy that started Apple, Steve Jobs. No, I'm sorry, I'm confused. It was either Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, I forget. For some reason, I'm thinking of Steve Jobs. It was one of the big tech guys. Was trying to meet Dr. Mensa, but they couldn't connect with him. Some kind of way, somebody found out that James knew him. James orchestrated a meeting at his shoe shine with Dr. Mensa and Steve Jobs, or Bill Gates. I forget. It's one of those two. The shoe shine guy.
Yeah.
But it shows me the value. It's not the value of it's not your title that really matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Who you are as a person and what you can connect with.
Yeah.
And he saw value in people. And the best thing I could tell people is to see value in everybody.
It reminds me when I was living in D.C., my first experience with real estate was being in taxis.
Yeah.
Because if I wanted to know what was going on or where there was development,
Yeah.
it was always a person that was driving the city every single day
Yeah.
that could tell you, like, oh, no, they don't hang out over there.
Yeah.
Like, folks are over here. But I think it's a powerful point, right? Like,
Yeah.
relationships should be being developed
Yes.
with as many people as possible, and you should know that, like, value can be extracted.
God used a donkey to deliver a message.
Yeah. And
Right.
I mean, for a relationship standpoint, though, another way that you see this play out is at events, right? Folks
Yeah.
will finish. I'm sure you've had this experience
Yeah.
where you'll get off a stage and everybody's running to try to meet you.
Yeah.
And the person sitting next to them
Yeah.
is actually the person that they can build with.
Yeah,
and develop.
dude.
Lost art.
In fact, the person they really need to be in the room trying to get to, if they're trying to get to me, is my assistant, Danielle, who's my gatekeeper.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to,
Yeah.
because you can just end up on my calendar. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, who's this I meet with? Because she made the executive decision that you should meet with this person.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing I've learned, that you got to treat the admins,
Yeah.
understand who they are
Yep.
across the board. Again, but it's the value of not being transactional, but really being about relationships.
So, I mean, speaking of that, like, how do you maintain, or you've met and worked with
Yeah.
some huge names, some huge organizations.
Yeah.
How do you go about actually maintaining those relationships?
Dude, I literally, my mother said this, and I got to give my mother credit for this. Somebody crosses your mind, pick up the phone and call them. So I could just be driving on the weekend, somebody pops in my mind, I'm going to call them. Hey, man, my mom told me, somebody crosses my mind, I'm supposed to pick the phone and call them. Man, how you doing? And I do that randomly with clients that I've had for 20-some years.
Wow.
In fact, the clients who are no longer the heads of real estate for this company or the heads of real estate for that, I still keep in contact with these people. For me, I've had a client, this guy, Court Bishop. Court Bishop was the global head of real estate for AT&T. Okay. The only people who had more real estate than AT&T was the federal government. Okay. He told a story to me and Dexter and Leonte. We would go he's in the West Coast. Even after he retired, we still have dinner with him. And he said this to us, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, Dallas, when I had that title, every broker on the planet wanted me to be their friend.
Yep.
The minute I retired and did not have that title, he said, y'all are the only ones still call me.
Wow.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks, like, I want to see you more than your title. As Tashonda Duckett said, titles are rented, you know? But who you are as a person is what I'm trying to connect with. I'm not trying to connect with Ryan, the CEO of the Gathering Spot.
Yeah.
I want to connect with Ryan. So that's going to transfer
Yeah.
regardless of what you're doing.
It sounds like, too, that you're playing a long game.
It's got to be. And that's the other thing I realized. Real money, real money, their week is a year.
Yeah.
When you broke, I mean, you live in fume to fume, minute to minute, hour to hour. It's that the ability to be able to have that on your side, like you're expanding time.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to understand that even though you can't, maybe your pockets can't afford to wait that long, you almost got to mind trick yourself to get on that patient track. Well, so I tell people, be persistent, but be patient. You're driving the car with, your foot's on the gas, but your foot's on the brake too. You're doing this constantly. But the minute I become a pest to you, you got that friend who calls you when they got to borrow $200. You look at the phone, you go, oh, here they go. You already know what the call is going to be.
Yep.
At a certain point, you don't even want to take the call no more.
Yep.
So you never want to be that person.
I've been asking in a lot of these conversations, I've been calling it the phone call test, which is exactly what you described.
Yeah.
When your name comes up on someone's phone,
yeah.
what feeling do you want them to have? So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you that question. So
Yeah.
what feeling do you want folks to have when they see your name pop up on their phone?
Man, it's Dallas. I got to get this call, man.
Yeah.
And they answer the phone laughing already.
Yeah.
Man, what you been up? Man, what you done? Man, and then they drop, they put aside what they're talking about. And just to be human.
Yeah.
Because what I realized, there was a period of time when because a good friend of mine was doing work with Denzel Washington. So I around Denzel at least 50 times.
Mm.
I don't have a picture with Denzel or anything.
Mm-hmm.
What's my point in saying that? My point in saying this, when he was around me and around us, I wanted him to feel like a normal person.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put him on the spot like taking pictures and things like that. How can I make this person feel normal?
Yeah.
And what I've learned is, particularly with higher achieving people who always have somebody at the gate waiting for them, their just woo-sah moment is, if I can be around you, Dallas, and be a normal person,
Yeah.
I want to be around you. Yeah.
Looking forward, Atlanta.
Yeah.
From here, that's increasingly a rare thing to be able to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the city going?
It's going to be very different than what we know it to be. I see. I'm going to answer that question with a statement that Herman Russell used to make. Herman's thing was always buy it when it's ugly. Okay. Ross Perot said, buy it in the inevitable path of growth. So I take Ross Perot and Herman together. Buy it when it's ugly in the inevitable path of growth. Now, the unfortunate part is most of the people who look like me and you don't do that. We're not moving in the hood. Mm-hmm. So we're going to move where the Whole Foods, the Publix already exists. So we're already paying premium as a result of that. Mm-hmm. People who don't look like us will move into these areas. Some people use the word gentrification. I don't even use that word because they were first adapters. They took advantage of it.
Yep.
So they buy the house for $20,000. Later, the Whole Food comes. Now that same house is worth $600,000, $700,000. Now we're looking at the neighborhood. Now we want to move in the neighborhood, but now it's $600,000, $700,000 to move into it. Mm-hmm. The equity that this person has is $500,000. We're $10,000 at best.
Yeah.
What I hope will happen is that we'll see the value in our own communities. Mm-hmm. First, number one, we already know them. Mm-hmm. In 1976, when we moved out of the community, my family fell, victim to thinking the grass was greener on the other side. We moved to College Park in 1976. First black family on our street in College Park in 1976. I moved all different places, only to realize the happiest I've ever been, the most joy I ever had, was in the west side of Atlanta. So I'm coming back. I bought a house at 1345 MLK. The plan is to move back to the west side.
Wow.
Why? Because I got Herman in my mind.
Yeah.
Buy it when it's ugly, in the inevitable path of growth. So all of our inner cities, all of our in-town stuff, it's going to be up. The question is whether or not we'll be a part of it. We've got to see value in our own stuff. That's our fundamental problem, I think. We see value in everybody else's stuff except our own. That's one of the reasons why I love the gathering spot. You celebrate that.
Got to talk to each other.
And so I'm hopeful. The values are going up in the inner city, period.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that we'll get in there now, because we still have some opportunities to get some ugly stuff.
Yeah.
But give it 5, 10 years, it will not be. Look at Ponce City Market. Ponce City Market used to be hood.
Yes.
I can't even hood. Yeah. I mean, like on the west side, we wouldn't go over there. That's how bad it was. Now, dude.
Beltline and $1 million homes.
Dude. Places, You sell crack right here. I mean, but I can't be mad at it at all.
But it follows what you're saying. It was ugly.
It was ugly.
And it was inevitable.
Inevitable. So
I have a couple last questions here. You're in real estate.
yes.
And it's an interesting industry, right? It feels like a lot of the things that are worked on, I mean, almost by definition, they take a minute.
Yeah, no doubt.
So looking at it from a relationship standpoint, have you ever seen a deal that's come together where the folks involved, the core party involved, where they didn't know each other, right? Where there was no relationship? Or have you seen in most instances, kind of the opposite, that these are long-standing relationships, people know where people are, and that like that's how things actually get done?
Herman Russell is a perfect example. It was Herman and 6 white guys. Scott Hudgens was one of the guys who Herman made millions of dollars together. But Herman told me this. He said, "Dallas, I'd be wealthier if I'd have done more deals with Scott Hudgens."
Wow.
But the reality of a lot of this was stretching him about like Noonan. Noonan was nothing. It was pastured. Most of all that's been developed with Scott Hudgens.
Wow.
And so, but HJ made a ton of money with him. Wayne Mason, these guys, but they had a genuine relationship.
How do you calibrate risk though when it comes to, because I mean in real estate opportunities it's like it's great when it works out.
Yeah.
But like anything else, there are deals that just don't hit their thesis.
The solution, long haul, man. Herman never sold anything and held everything. So if your basis was like, you know where the Pascals is now?
Yeah.
That block, I purchased 85-90% of that block for Herman, of 40 parcels.
Wow.
And we paid $2 a foot for each parcel.
No way.
On average. So call it, 43,560 is the square footage of an acre. So at $43,560, you would have paid $1 a foot for that acre. So we paid $87,000 on average an acre on that block. Land in that area now is trading for $3 to $4 million an acre. But when it's ugly, in the inevitable path of growth. HJ's whole thing was 504 Fair Street, all this was going to be downtown. This is all going to be part of downtown. He was spot on, man. So, invest what you can afford to lose. And if you go in with that mindset, you won't lose.
Especially if you hold.
If you hold.
Wow.
In the inevitable path where it's ugly. But if you need it back within the next year, 2 years, 3, don't do it.
Powerful.
Yeah.
My last question, I've been asking everybody this. I think with folks like yourself, where long distinguished career, you've been involved in a lot of different efforts.
Yes.
We didn't even have time to talk about all of the stuff that you do outside of your main job. Okay, well, actually, we've got to get to that.
Okay.
Because I think it's important. So you have committed yourself to a ton of efforts outside of what can be considered as your day job.
Yes.
What are some of those things, and why has that been important?
So I saw Herman do it. So again, Herman was involved in a lot of things. So last year I was president of Atlanta Commercial Board, first black president, 113-year-old organization. So I sit as past president right now. I'm currently the vice chair of the Board of Regents for the state of Georgia. We govern 26 schools across the state. Budget's a little bit over $12 billion. I'll be chair of that organization next year. I'm chair of the West Side Future Fund. The focus and the love of what's happening on the West Side, that's all me. A lot of that was seeded early on with Dan Cathy and Arthur Blank and Jeff Spreaker. So that's what I'm there. The Rice Center, the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurship, that's my ode to Herman. He put so much in me, I got to give some back to him, so I'm on that board. I feel like I'm leaving something else out. But I've had this question, well, why do you do all these things, right? So when I started this business, T.Dallas with the company, I had no clients, no money, and I started with a 19-year-old sophomore from Morehouse, who's now the president of the company, Leonte. When I started this company, it was because God told me to do these things. The one word he gave me was about exposure. I said, well, how am I going to pay my house note? How am I going to pay exposure? And it didn't make no sense to me at the time. Mm. So I'm here with you today on this podcast. What? Exposure. Mm. And everything kind of happened that way. Mm. And I think it's very important for me that I heard what I was supposed to do from God. I just did it. 2 weeks into meeting Leonte, God told me to raise him up as a son. When you turn 60, this will be one who's going to run your company. Wow. So everything was geared towards that way. I told Leonte, I need 5 years of your time. I'm going to teach you everything I know, but I'll make you one promise. You give me that time, you'll be making more money than all your friends. I can guarantee you that. Mm-hmm. The kid he just turned 40. Mm. He's very humble, but the kid is killing it, has been killing it. And where he's taking the company is phenomenal, but we got great young leaders, Cedric Matheny, Corey Ferguson, Audra Cunningham. I mean, I'm excited. Nick Winbush. I mean, we've got some go-getters, man. Some young cats coming out, man. Maze McQueen. So you're going to be hearing about some folks, man, that I'm just proud to see them coming up. And all I'm really doing, Ryan, I say it again, I'm doing what I saw HJ do. Mm. And the more we do that, we're all going to be better. I mean, it's not enough that we have one Ryan, one TK. We've got to have more Ryans, more TKs. Oh, so sure. The best way that we can do that is by you bringing up that next generation. Because the reality of it is, home ownership doing segregation for black folks was higher then than it is now. So what's that prove? It proves that, yes, we can take care of our own. Yes. But because I'm not looking for any handout from anywhere. Because I know if I really need something, I can call Ryan. Ryan really needs something, you can call me. I call Egbert. I mean, we can pull some stuff together. I don't have to have my hand out to make something else happen. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer in this. Give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. Absolutely. And that was my whole thing with Leonte. The day he did his first deal from beginning to end, I wrote him a card, and I said that very thing to him. I said, today, you learned to fish. Keep fishing.
And he ain't stopped yet?
Dude, that boy's off the chain. Yeah, very proud of him. 18 years we'll be together December.
That's powerful. Yeah, my last question. Again, and this has been such an honor to talk to you. Super successful people like yourself. You talk about your work on a number of occasions. Folks are interested in it. Yeah. I have a fundamental belief that there are people, right, that for whatever reason just don't always get the opportunity to be included in that story, right, but are so important. They're relationships that like make us who we are. And so my last question to you is, who can you give us a person or people, right, that are that person that you wish you had more time? We talked about Mr. Russell's influence, but someone else that you wish that you had more time to talk about the influence that they've had on you.
Herman Russell for sure, but Mr. Tiff, the guy that brought me in the real estate business. Thomas W. Tiff, Tiff, Georgia, Tiff College, Tifton, Tiff County, you know. That's who brought me in the real estate business. Wow. Now, he's a white guy. In fact, my name's really not Dallas. My real name is Tanalo. That's why people in the hood call me Ty. You know, Tanalo Smith. That's my government name. That's it. Long story short, when I met this young guy, when I figured out I wanted to get into commercial real estate, I met a guy, Tom Thompson, white guy. Told him what I was trying to do. He met Mr. Tiff. He said, yeah, I met this guy who wants to hire somebody. I said, what's his name? He said, Thomas Tiff. I said, like, Tiff County, Tiff College? He said, yeah. He said, one and the same. So there's Atlanta, then there's Georgia. And I'm 19. He said, give me your resume. And so this is when I whitewashed my resume. It wasn't a term back then. I just knew. I went to Tennessee State before I went to Georgia State. And my hobbies is back in the day, you put hobbies on your resume. I ran track, played basketball. I knew I couldn't have that on my resume for this guy. So, but I played tennis, but I made up some other stuff like golf and squash. I made it look as white as hell. But I still had this issue with my name. In 1982, the hottest TV show was Dallas. So the list, I studied the list about, that's how I even got into commercial real estate. I just studied what the richest people in the world did. Forbes had the richest 400, and the richest people in the world did one of four things: real estate, investments, oil industry, or technology. I'm from Atlanta, want to stay in Atlanta, so oil would have taken me to Texas, investments would have taken me to New York, technology just wasn't my personality, and then real estate, I didn't want to work on the weekends, so that knocked out residential. So I literally just backed into it.
Wow.
And one of the names I researched was T. Boone Pickens, old man out of Texas. When you hear that name, T. Boone Pickens, you can already imagine what that guy looked like, right? So I had a T and a Smith that was generic. I needed something in the middle. That's how T.Dallas Smith became a person on paper. Gave it to my white buddy, gave it to Mr. Tiff. He said, man, I like his resume, have him call me. So now I got to do the phone test. On the phone test, I can't sound like a brother. So I can't do it now, but in 1982, the whitest white man in America to me was Johnny Carson. And I could do Johnny Carson cold at 19. I don't even remember what he sounds like now. He loved the conversation. He said, all right, let's meet. So now I got to show up. When I show up, I come in all my blackness. And the secretary was thrown off, walked backwards, closed the door, came back, said, he'll see you now. And when I go back, the story goes, Susan said, Mr. Tiff, Dallas is here, but he's black. And Mr. Tiff said, well, oh my God, well, since he's here, let him come on back, but this will be the shortest interview in the history of mankind. Obviously, I don't know this. I go back and shake his hand, and Mr. Tiff is Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. Good-looking white guy, but he looked like money, okay? Their parent company was called Piedmont Cotton Mills, okay? So put this in perspective. In fact, the majority of the land where the airport sits right now, which is about 3,000 acres, majority of that land was TIF land.
Wow.
Okay? So, but when the airport bought all this stuff, they still had 80 acres left over. So he was trying to hire somebody to represent their properties. They had office, industrial, retail, and just raw land. And so I go in, man, again, I got nothing to lose. Before I get ready to sit down, he's got past his desk is an 8x10 black and white of Ronald Reagan. And it's signed to my dear friend Tommy from Runny. So as I pass it, I go, oh, you're a Reagan fan? He said, yes, I am. I said, so am I. So he's like a deer in headlights. The first person I ever voted for was Reagan in 1980. It had nothing to do with blue and red, because it's very different than it is now. Jimmy Carter, God bless him, but interest rates were 17, 18%, gas lines. So in my head, the next guy just got to be better than this guy. Because I didn't want to be still living in my parents' house when I'm 50 years old with an 18% interest rate. So that's why I look at these 7% interest rates everybody complain about, like, nah, y'all don't even understand. This is nothing. So 2 hours later, we just connected, man. And
Wow.
The story goes, when I left, he told the secretary, I'm going to do something I thought I'd never do. I'm going to hire that young man. So he brought me into the real estate business. I'm forever grateful for him. I tell people he was my branch Ricky. The real aha for him is his father, Big Tiff, as I refer to him, was the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan in Tifton.
Wow.
So the son of a Grand Dragon, it's kind of tough to say that, brought me into commercial real estate. And so that's when I tell people, take your time to get to know people for yourself. Don't go by what other people say. I got a real test case for that. So he went from that to, I have a letter on my wall in my office. It's signed from Thomas Tiff, your other dad.
Wow.
So I know the power, how God can change people. That's what I lean on.
It's a perfect place to end this. I appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for this conversation. I think this is going to do something for a lot of people. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Continued success.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Yes.